Good day, everybody, and welcome to the TIBCO Analytics Meetup with the TIBCO Data Science team. We're going to get into analytics and data functions and Spotfire and Python. This is part of our overall TIBCO Connected Intelligence portfolio. We're going to be focusing in today on the unify and predict part of those, Spotfire and Python in particular. And really our portfolio is set up to make it possible to unlock the potential of real-time data in making faster decisions. And we build our products for heads of visual analytics and data science who want to get insights out of the data, or for data managers who want to deliver data quickly in a secure way, for operations and IT who want to get analytics into the real-time decision-making framework, and for business leaders who want to grow the business and outpace the competition. So we'll be zeroing in on those areas. And business leadership wants embedded analytics. They want advanced analytics predictions. They want alerts. They want forecasts, interactive dashboards. And then it's up to us to deliver those analytics through information portals, analytic workbenches like Spotfire we'll be featuring today, data science labs, which we'll be touching on, and developer studios. So hopefully we've got an audience of either BI developers or analytic experts or data scientists, citizen data scientists, ML engineers, data stewards, data modelers, those sort of folks. And it's a lot of work to pull the data forward for the analytics process. So those data management folks are building data catalogs, managing data marts, data lakes, streaming data, doing master data management, against all the data sources that are flowing in to the organization. And we're blessed to have a number of products in this area, all the way from creating your own embedded reports inside of Jaspersoft to distributing en masse web-focused type reports. Spotfire, which is going to be the main event today for self-service interactive visual analytics and visual data science labs with TIBCO Data Science and TIBCO Streaming for DevOps, and then the suite of data management tools that we have, all the way from OmniGen for data cleaning to data virtualization, master data management with EBX and in the cloud, TCMD. And we're going to show you today how to bring those pieces together, all inside of Spotfire, so that we can access data, we can get insights, we can automate those, with data science, we can learn and optimize those outcomes. And we'll be showing you this hyper-converged analytics, combining data science, visual analytics, and data management, all in Spotfire today, with a few applications. Lots of applications that can be addressed with this framework. I've just listed a few there in the IoT manufacturing space for yield management, advanced process control, anomaly detection, inventory management, pattern classification, and Colin's got some wonderful demos to show you throughout. So we'll be getting into the fact that Spotfire does have both an inbuilt R and Python engine. Python licensing makes that easy, but R, we had to rewrite R to make that a reality. But as a user, you just get to write R code and write Python and have that work directly inside of Spotfire. Now, if you're a citizen user, you don't want to write any code, then you can go and configure your flyout to add data functions that other people have written. You can get those from your internal community, or you can download a bunch of those from our TIBCO community site. Once you have those data functions loaded into Spotfire, it's then just a point and click exercise to map inputs and outputs to run data functions like you're seeing on the screen right now, that fits a Voronoi tessellation across a map to align different data sources, for, in this case, figuring out how to, say, match weather with a generation of power or something like that, or retail examples. The other great thing about, I think Colin's going to show, is that the data function framework can pull in services from cloud providers. Pretty much everybody these days is offering libraries with Python SDKs or APIs. With Amazon, you can call into the Boto 3 collection of Python services. Microsoft has Azure cognitive services. So all of the cloud vendors have a lot of years of experience in doing image recognition or speech recognition, text analysis. All of that can be then, a simple Python call can invoke a pre-trained model that will do image recognition or speech conversion and that sort of thing. So here's a quick example of what I'm talking about. In Spotfire, we're analyzing, in this case, a set of reviews from Airbnb, and we're trying to figure out the sentiment. Is it a positive review or a negative review? And so we're calling pre-trained models in both AWS and Azure to do that sentiment analysis. And I can see most of the time the sentiment scores there agree for the different reviews. There's one case there where the Azure sentiment is different to the AWS sentiment from the pre-trained model. But yes, sentiment analysis, if someone does a review in Spanish, call the service that does the translation. So we can add to the Spotfire data functions calls into AWS and Azure to bring in sentiment analysis, entity recognition, translation, those sort of things as part of our analysis. And it just feels like it's all happening in Spotfire. These calls are very quick to make against a pre-trained model to score a review and get back a sentiment, for example. Now, Colin's also going to mention the great new innovation we have in Spotfire Mods. And the first incarnation of this is to extend the visual palette into graphics that are not, in the product. So specialized graphics, for example, and we've added a bunch of stuff in this regard. Now, you can join the community of mods and make your own contributions, get into the Git repo, play around with things. There's guides, tutorials, examples, templates for doing that. But again, just like with the Python, you can be a citizen and come in and get mods that someone else has developed and then just use a point and click operation to add those visuals to your analysis. And we've started that. We've got 11 mods up on our community exchange. I think Colin's going to show a couple of those today. But again, with both the Python and the mods, you can be a developer, but you can also be a citizen and be part of that developers community or the TIBCO community to take a point and click approach to this sort of thing. So let me hand off to Colin to take you through today's demonstrations.
So what we're going to do today is, as Michael described, we're going to show some examples of how we can leverage Python and these new Spotfire visual mods to really drive data science processes so that citizen data scientists and business users and data scientists alike can benefit from visually driven data science, almost codeless data science. So let me take you to 2 examples. This first example is a predictive model. So we're going to build a machine learning model to predict the production at a plant. So this is like a typical data set you might have where you've got time series data and you've got the production of this plant and you've got a whole load of sensors. So it's like a bit like a digital twin. But what we want to show is how you can use Python and visual mods to really augment and analyze and then simulate how you can improve your business process. So as Michael mentioned, one of the nice new features in Spotfire is this data function flyout, which makes it much easier to actually use the power of Python without having to get into the code that somebody else may have written for you. So for instance, in this flyout, I can find items in my library and I'm going to look for a correlation analysis. And here I can see I've got this correlation data function that somebody, say a data scientist in your business, has deployed to Spotfire. And you can pin that to your FX panel here, which now means it's on your favorites. So you can get all your favorite data functions. So here you can see I've got some natural language processing and column correlation. If I click on it, you get this really nice interface to configure that correlation function. So we're going to calculate the correlation between all the sensors in this plant's data. So it's very easy to configure. We just specify the data. You see the description of what you need to configure. In this case, we have to pass the data into it. So here I can go and select the columns. I'm going to select all these sensor data that we've got. And then you can do things like you can specify which correlation method you want to use. And one of the really nice things and powerful things about Spotfire is you can attach variables and data to Spotfire's visuals. So what I do here is I select what's called a document property where I store the correlation method. I'll show you why that's so useful in giving a much more immersive experience to your end users. There can be optional arguments. I'm going to leave this one empty because it's optional. I don't need it. And you just click OK. And now that data function actually runs and then puts in new data for you. So it's very easy to then generate and pull in data from data functions. And what you're doing now seeing here is that what I've taken is the correlation results. So if I show you the table that came back from that correlation data function, here you can see all the results and the correlation scores. And the nice thing here is that we can then use Spotfire's visual interactions to actually analyze correlation in a much more visual way. You know, when you do this in traditional things like Jupyter, it's very static, the images, but here we can see this nice heat map. And we've got one of these visual mods. This is a network chart, and you can see that I can filter down to the correlations, and I can see, for instance, my production here. has a negative correlation to some parameters shown by blue and positive correlations to others. And it helps me design my data science predictive models or just understand my data better. So you can see that all these parameters here, these DP parameters, are heavily correlated together, so they have a strong relationship. And the nice thing is, as I mentioned with those document properties, you can actually change the type of correlation and just update and analyze that. So now I've changed it to a slightly different correlation method, and you can see you get different results. So as an end user, I don't need to worry about the data science or the Python behind the scenes. I just get to benefit and use the outputs in this visually driven brush linking, etc. Filtering way. So we can expand on this example use case. We can use Spotfire's inbuilt analysis to do some really nice analytics. You know, this is standard Spotfire, what it's really great at, where we can, this is our production of the plant that we're interested in. You can highlight areas using the brush linking and see all the sensors, etc. And here you see another mod, one of these new visual mods, a spider plot, and the text card mod, which helps show free text. So we've got some log information. I'll show a lot more about free text in the natural language processing example, but you can really see the power here of using these mods and visual sort of interactions. So we want to build a predictive model for this. We've done some correlation analysis. You've analyzed the data, looked at the production of the plant that we want to predict, but now we can utilize Python again. So again, without needing to know the code or the machine learning models, you can develop a nice front end for somebody, a citizen data science, to develop a model. You tell it what you want to predict, which is production per minute, and then you can select what columns you want to put into your model. And again, this is just using Python data functions that your data scientist or whoever has deployed, and then you can connect to them just like I did with the correlation. You can expose parameters such as hyperparameters for your model, or you can keep it simple. And when you click Build Model, it then goes out, and in this case, we're running a random forest through Python, through typical packages such as sklearn, and it's built us a nice new model. And here, Spotfire automatically calculates things like the R-squared, which is a nice measure of how powerful that model is at predicting. And you can get things like residuals here, etc. So that's showing you how fast and easily you can build a model. I can change that model, add a new parameter and rebuild it and see the impact. So you see it's very interactive and visual without having to edit code. Each time you have to edit code, it's the potential to bring in an error. It assumes that you understand the code and how to edit this. This takes that away and gives your business a real power to do it without that and do it visually. So one of the nice things in this example is we've built a model that can predict plant production, and it's got a nice R-squared. So we can actually use it to simulate and benefit our business. So what we can do is say, let's pick one of the inputs, let's pick gas level. And you can run a simulation. And what it does is it shows you in the blue line, the real production at the plant, so the actual values, and in the pink is the predicted. And here you can see that the pink line overlays nicely with the blue line. So it's a pretty good model. So imagine we wanted to say, well, how could we improve production? Imagine we could limit the gas level so it never drops before 5. What impact would that have on the production pattern we see here? So you can click simulate production, and now it passes the model we built here and passes in these new simulation parameters and alters the data. So now you can see if we can control the gas level at a plant, you actually see that this prediction would be that these dips in production are no longer there. So this is the real data. And this is what our simulation has predicted improvement will be. So that's really nice because you can tweak this and play around with it and really run simulations and analyses to try and optimize your processes, all visually driven, but powered by data science behind the scenes. So that was the first sort of quick demo where we saw Python data functions, Spotfire mods, and using that to do predictive modeling and simulation. I want to jump over to the example that Michael was just showing as well, where we do text analytics. So quite a different type of analysis, but text analytics is really powerful for lots of different things, for anomaly detection or for sentiment, for looking at customer calls or log information to detect what's happening, for recommender systems and retail or business, etc. So as Michael shown, we've got examples where you can call out to Azure. We've got these lovely maps that Spotfire does, and here we can highlight properties. So the data in this is real Airbnb reviews from Edinburgh. And if we click Azure here, it actually goes out live to Azure and we'll do a sentiment analysis and translation, as Michael's shown before. But these are great and they're quick, and it's great to use the cloud models that are pre-built, but often you will want to tune, say, a sentiment or text analytics to your business. You know, you may have a very specific field and you want to customize the models. And that's where the power of Spotfire comes in. You can utilize cloud models as well as your own custom models and techniques all through the Python and TER data functions. So for instance, if we take this same Airbnb review data that we passed out to Azure and did some translation and sentiment, let's do a custom analysis using existing Python libraries, but then really augment and control the process. So imagine you want to do some full-blown text analytics. One of the most important tasks you'll do at the start is actually prepare that data. So here again, using these nice visual cues, people can call out to the Python functions. So we might want to stem our text, we might want to limitize it and remove numbers, etc. And then you click prepare text and it will use Python again to generate n-grams and text. So for instance, in this data, so these are all the Airbnb sites in Edinburgh. And if I highlight and brush link a couple here, you can see the review, the original review as it was on Airbnb. You can see the text. But on this side on the right, you can see the clean text. So what the lemmatization and removing of number does really tries to find important words that are much easier to analyze and use in models. So for instance, here you can see this review here where it's got lots of words like and a beautiful place. And here the lemmatization and text preparation has reduced it down. So that puts you in a really nice place to focus on the keywords that you could use, for instance, for recommender systems or for clustering of reviews and properties. So we want to take that to the next level. And what we can do is then do keywords and key phrase analysis. So again, the same map of all the properties in Edinburgh, and they're actually colored by the cost to rent them. But what we're doing is looking at keywords that have been extracted. You can see here we've got this text bubble chart, which is another mod showing n-grams. And here we've got an analysis of keywords. So for instance, you can look at great location, and he highlights on the map where that is. And you can see, as you might expect, it's all centered around the really heart of Edinburgh in the middle, where people mention in their reviews it's a great location. So imagine you had someone searching our website for good location Edinburgh. You could use this type of keyword analysis to match good properties for them. So we can do things like look at where location is mentioned and say, okay, let's look at all the times people have positive mentions of a location and really analyze where those types of phrases are used. So you can see this real hotspot around the centre of Edinburgh. You might even want to do things like look at potential issues. So for instance, if we wanted to see where have people complained or mentioned noise, and we can highlight everywhere using the NLP that it found the word noise. And now we can see, you know, some of the complaints or people who said anything about noise, and you see the reviews. So this is nice, but this is just using keywords. We've not done sentiment analysis of any of the more machine learning based models, but we're already getting value and we can use that to learn and improve how we use text data for our business. So the next thing we want to do is then take that forward and actually go into some sentiment analysis. So this is more like a full-blown use of text analytics. We've got a lot of information going on here using various Python and TER or R data functions. So what we've done again is allow a business user to choose what they want to do. Do they want to run sentiment analysis? Do they want to do pause and NER tagging? So that's tagging entities and what type of words are in your reviews, such as nouns and verbs. And again, you just simply click a button and it will actually then pass it out to Python. I'm just cancelling that because the processes obviously take a few minutes and we don't want to wait on that. But here what we see is a real in-depth analysis where we've got a map of Edinburgh. Now, instead of being coloured by cost of the property, we're actually colouring it by sentiment. So with the best sentiment analysis being blue, pink and grey in the middle, and then negative reviews in orange and red. And you can see mostly it's all blue or pinks, which show positive. But what we've actually done is we've used another data function, which is a heat map, and it's created this geospatial analysis where it shows you the different reviews and the hotspots of reviews. So if we turn off the reviews, because you can see there's a lot on the map, now we can see the hotspots. So this hotspot of blue, positive reviews, and on the edge, and where the pink is. So you actually get a real feel for how that distribution of properties is. And that's great because you can't really see the detail. And we can filter to areas, and Spotfire will automatically rerun your data function. So for instance, if we look at the centre of Edinburgh again, around Princess Street, you see it's automatically filtered the data, and then it's zoomed in and rerun this, this heat map to show us the points. And we can control that heat map. For instance, we can control how much that algorithm smooths the data. So if we make it change that, we can see it's more smooth here, and you can see it's hotspot of good reviews, or you can make it a bit more detailed. So again, giving your users real control to take business decisions and really analyze and learn. We can do things like look at the phrase sentiment here. So you've got this nice bubble chart. And for instance, you can see great is always coming up as a very positive thing, as you'd expect. But you can see other things, for instance, this word cold here. And if you highlight it, it shows all the properties that people mentioned it was cold and the reviews that they did. So I find that a bit cold, which is pretty typical of Edinburgh. We can look at things like, for instance, where somebody mentioned buildings or airports. So where have people mentioned sites, for instance? So here we can see things like the castle or Arthur's Seat, which is a famous landmark in Edinburgh. So you've really got this power to delve into this. We can look at subjectivity of the statements people make, and we can also look at sentiment. So you see it's very visually driven, and we get this lovely sort of experience of and delving into that. So hopefully this gives you a nice idea of how you can really get the power of data science and Python and visual mods all through Spotfire, but without necessarily having to have the coding skills to do that all through this plug and play framework. So at that point, I'll stop and hand back to Elaine and Michael.
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, Colin. Really a fantastic demo. So Elaine, you're going to pick up from here.
Yes, I'll pick up from here, and we'll start shortly with the discussion. I just wanted to highlight a few things on the TIBCO community. So the first thing is we have a newsletter. So if you like these type of updates from the data science team on our analytics portfolio and the things we've been up to, then please sign up for the newsletter. You'll receive it once a quarter, and it will remind you of the next quarterly meetup that is coming up. The other thing I wanted to point out is a few of the community pages that relate to the content that Michael has talked about and Colin just demoed. So let me just jump to the actual site to show you this. So the TIBCO Community Exchange is an important area, I think, to remember. This is our marketplace where we post all the data functions and the mods and all our other product extensions. So it's really good for you to know to find this. The TIBCO community is community.tibco.com. We'll share all those links with you. And the section that has all these components is called the Exchange. When you are new to the TIBCO community, you just have to register once, and then you'll be able to download all of these assets, and you'll also be able to ask questions and interact with the community content. Now, I've selected data function and mods, so this will give me all the data functions and mods that are available. You can also search for different modules, but if you're not yet very familiar with those, the other thing that you can do is go to the mods overview if you want to learn more about mods. This is a really good starting page to learn everything about mods. So it will tell you how they work, how you can get started. It has a lot of links to videos and training and all the ways that you can get started with mods. And the other page that is good to know, and we'll share this link with you as well, is the data function library. So all the data functions that Colin just demoed are available on the TIBCO Community Exchange, but they're also explained and sort of organized on this page, which is really nice because you'll get a better understanding what they do, and it will help you sort of find the data function that you're looking for. And you know, if you click on any of those data functions, you'll actually go straight to the community exchange that I just showed you. So as you see, we're now on the exchange. And the nice thing about this as well is that you can try them directly on Spotfire Cloud. So it's a really nice interactive way to get sort of familiar with the different data functions that are available. You can just click through and use those. So that's what I wanted to share on the community. I think it's now time to answer the questions that you've asked. So let me check in the Q&A in the chat. We've received a number of questions. The first question is a question, I think, for Colin, and this is how to include a Python library while creating a data function. Could you talk about that? Yeah, absolutely. And there's a really nice process. If it's okay, I could share quickly and show you that. It will only take a couple of minutes. So let me just share. Apologies for showing my dog multiple times. So Spotfire actually helps you manage, and that's something we can talk about a bit more later. But to bring in Python packages, and the same for Terra R, it's actually very easily, because you can go in and go into tools and Python tools, and what you get here is a package management interface. So this will actually allow you to search and install packages all for yourself. Traditionally, people who use Python use pip, a command line tool. So what Spotfire does is it builds you this front end to help you do that. So for instance, if I wanted to install sklearn, I can simply search for it, find sklearn and hit install, and that will automatically install it into your Python instance that you run through Spotfire. You can also point Spotfire. It has its own inbuilt Python, but you can even point it at your own Spotfire instance on your PC or whatever, and do it that way as well. So hopefully that answers your question.
That's terrific. Yeah. One thing I love, Colin, was just the way you were able to set up the mods, but then have them be responsive to inputs and sliders, and I think that's the huge advantage here, is you pull together a Python function and pull together a Spotfire mod. And these just then become part of the immersive Spotfire experience, responsive to filters, sliders, zooming, marking, all that stuff. That's kind of amazing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I haven't been a Spotfire user for many years. I've found that I've started to use mods in almost every analysis, because they give you that extra ability to do things like that. Network chart works wonders for that correlation analysis, something I would have never traditionally thought of to try. But it also means you can build industry specific things, whether you're in energy or retail, there's specific visuals that you may want to develop, and now you can pull them in and using these mods, and it's very drag and drop, and like you say, it's fully interactive and visual.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a question in here about the package management, and I can take a quick cut of this, Colin. You can add your experience, but on the server side, we have this, what we call our nodes and services architecture, where your administrator can set up working groups and apply different Python packages to those groups. So you can have different people developing, in different environments with different Python packages. The grounding principle of democracy with Spotfire, though, is once you click Save As To Library, basically whatever you've developed as your analysis, like what Colin just developed today, Save As To Library, someone else can then open that inside of a web browser without requiring any other packages whatsoever. And they can do all that stuff Colin was doing, slide around, filter, mark, zoom, and so that, just the basic development environment is governed through very simply on the nodes and services piece for people developing things. And then the deployment is just through the standard Spotfire web player type technology. But Colin, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it really allows you to sort of take this to an enterprise level with your Python analysis and work. One of the things we do is you can actually package up, like you say, all the libraries and deploy that across your business, so that when anyone logs into Spotfire, for instance, they will get the right Python packages locally, but also means you can centralize it on the web player. So one of the most amazing high impact things I've found is that you can actually run Python and Terra through the web, via Spotfire's integrated, web player and node management. And that allows you to version it and everything. So you can even have different packages deployed to different user groups or to different servers or instances of Spotfire.
Absolutely. And there's another question up here, Colin, now about data prep capabilities, and Spotfire is very strong at that. I don't know if you've got the ability to throw up the data canvas, but Yeah, Spotfire's data wrangling inbuilt capabilities for, joining. I think there's a couple of hundred different functions for cleaning data, joining data, preparing data sets for, doing a visual analysis. And all of that is tracked inside of Spotfire. So you have this this pipeline that you don't have to build the pipeline. It's getting built while you're doing your pointing and clicking. But it's the data canvas inside Spotfire keeps track of things, and it makes it easy to share from one analyst to another, so you can see what people have done. You've got all the point and click stuff, you've got the scripts that they've written, are all arranged on a data canvas. And maybe, Colin, that gave you enough time to pull up a data. I'm not sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Good buy me time there. Yeah, the data canvas is really amazingly powerful. It came into Spotfire late in version 7, and what it allows you to do is really give you a record and a flow, and you can manipulate, change data, alter it. If something changes in your source, like your database, like a column changes, it'll flag it up to you. So at its basic level, you have this very simple view of your table. And here you can do things like adding rows and columns, and it'll do database style joins all super fast through memory. You can also do transformations like filters, pivoting. For instance, here you can see I'm filtering some rows out so that certain prices never come through in the data. But what you end up having is something like this, where I've built this really nice process where my listings data gets joined onto all the reviews. So the Airbnb data has shown the listings of the properties and the reviews were totally separate. Then I can join it, and Spotfire will use its intelligent joinings to sort of suggest ways to join it. You can pick what columns get joined, but also you can choose all these different styles of joins. So something, traditionally might be done in a database using scripts like SQL. Spotfire allows you to visually do that and even preview how that join will look. And again, you can add columns, and here you can see I'm actually joining on multiple tables. So these two tables here are actually the output of my data functions. So that NLP sentiment results, you would see that that's come from my Python data function called NLP tagging. So this way you can build up some nice, advanced joins and from multiple different sources to give you your final data set you need for your analytics.
And the nice thing about this is Colin now has a lineage of what he did when he built this DXP, which is useful when you're doing a lot of analytics work, when you open back up something you did some months ago to see, how did I do that kind of thing. But also if Colin hands this off to me now, and I want to go in and, to make some changes and, train my own model or whatever, I can, I've got that whole base kind of framework of the data that's in the DXP, to start from. So it's really a great collaborative tool that we've found amongst our team too, right, Colin?
Yeah, absolutely. I think data lineage is something a lot of analytics teams struggle with. So being able to visualize that and then edit it without ever having to touch, any code is really powerful. So one of the things about the data canvas and also the way where we were showing how to call Python using interactive controls rather than editing code, one of the big businesses reason to do that is it makes your work a lot more sustainable, because you're not having to understand reams of code or how all the things connect. You can see it visually, and you can run it again without needing to change the code. And that makes your stuff more robust. It makes it easier to change. It makes it easier for new team members or new project members or new staff to actually get involved with that.
No, absolutely. That's the ability. We've tried to make it so that it's easy for the developer to create mods and data functions, but then it's super simple for the business user to bring those onto their flyout, point and click their way through, adding a mod or a data function to their analysis. And we tried to optimize both the developer experience and the citizen user experience. Now, this is very exciting, new developments in the product. People are asking, when are we going to get a long-term support release of Spotfire that supports all of this? I noticed actually that your product management is usually pretty guarded about that kind of stuff, but they're saying now, I saw on some website, Colin, that we're looking at June or July, something like that, right?
Yeah. So now on the TIBCO website, you'll be able to read that what they plan to do is release a long-term support version every June. So we hope that there'll be a version 11 coming out in June time that will have all these, the long-term release supported version where you get the mods and all these data function flyouts.
Yeah, and we're going to be really talking about this a lot at the upcoming TIBCO Analytics Forum. Helene, I was getting a cup of tea when you were presenting. Did you show a slide on the TAF? Here we go.
No,
yeah.
there it is. So
There it is,
yeah.
right here. So you're going to see, you get immersed in mods and data functions here, May 25 and 26. Colin, a whole bunch of others from the data science team are going to be presenting on the latest updates for mods and data functions, and the entire, TIBCO Predict portfolio, including Spotfire, TIBCO Data Science. We're going to preview TIBCO Model Ops. We've got TIBCO Streaming for real-time data. You're going to see our data management products, things like OmniGen and data virtualization, EBX for master data management. TIBCO Web Focus will also be on display. So yeah, it's going to be a real jam on all of our awesome data management and analytics products at the TIBCO Analytics Forum. So really invite you to come along. It's virtual this year, so you can quickly jump in and out of the sessions that you want to see. But you can, to your heart's content, look at data functions and mods for sure. Other questions, Helene? I've been.
No, I think we're good. We're over time a little bit, so I think we're going to wrap up.
Wrap it up. Okay, very good.
We'll make sure we'll get in touch if we've left off any answering any questions, but I think we've got all the ones in the Q&A. So thank you very much, Michael and Colin, for a great demo, and thank you everyone. We had a lot of attendees today, so thanks everyone for being here, and hope to see you at our next TIBCO Analytics meetup at the TIBCO Analytics Forum and in the TIBCO community. Thanks very much.
Thanks everybody. Bye bye.
Thanks everyone. Cheers.